Andrew Mack here with MMA Island. Today I'm with Jake, the Gorilla Pilla, who's fighting for Combat FC on February 10th. Jake, how you doing?
I'm doing well, my man. How are you?
I'm good. So tell me about your background. I know you have a kung fu background. Where did that all start?
I started kung fu when I was four. I stuck with it pretty much my entire life. I climbed through the ranks. I started coaching that when I was about nine, being like one of the assistant instructors. I'd say by the time I was like 12, 13, I was like running classes. I was at that school from the time I was four till I was 18. And I'd say when I was around 14, I made the switch over to jiu-jitsu and Muay Thai. And then I just started, kind of taking the MMA route from there and straying from the traditional background. I had already got my black sash and all the belts that I could, kind of accomplish over there. And I've been doing it for so long that I think it was time for me to grow and adapt. And so I felt like MMA was the way to go.
So a lot of traditional martial arts never venture out into different types of martial arts, into like modern martial arts. What made you take that push?
Um, so honestly, man, it was jujitsu. I had Brian Caldwell, who's actually still my jiu-jitsu coach. He gave me my black belt a couple years ago. Long story short, his kids were living next to my mom and me, and so I found out he came by to see his kids. He's like, "Hey, I'm a black belt. You should come and check out my school." And I was like, "Yeah," like in my head, being like this, 14-year-old, like junior black belt in kung fu, thinking I was tough. I was like, "Yeah, I'll come check it out." And so I walk in the room and I remember, like a couple guys in that room. It was like Brian, Carlos Neto. It was like Calvin Cater, Greg De Silva, like a lot of guys who like I still know to this day. And like they were wearing white belts and blue belts. Like in my head, I remember thinking like, oh, I got this. Like I've done martial arts forever. I definitely got this. And next thing I know, I get my butt whooped, and I just couldn't help but keep going back.
So your nickname, the Gorilla, where does that come from?
So the gorilla came from my father. When I was probably like 14 through 18, almost every night I would go and lift weights with him like later on in the night. And my father's a pretty big guy. And so in the gym, he was helping a lot of people lift weights and work out and kind of showing them machines and stuff like that. And so they started calling him Gorilla. It was one of those things that was just like a lot of fun. And he kind of turned into Pilla's Gorillas. And it was just kind of this like funny thing that we did around the gym. And I ended up for one of his birthdays, I think the year before I fought, I made him a ton of shirts that all said Pillars Gorillas. And all of us that worked out together wore them. We all like hit the beach and like hung out. And it was just kind of silly and funny, but it was an awesome time. And so, maybe a year later, I'm at a Naga tournament down at Twin River, and I won like two divisions back to back. And at the time, they were still like announcing people, like the top three winners. They'd bring out the banner, give you the sword or the medal, and send you on your way. Um, and so the guy announced me twice, and he's like, "Oh, if I'm gonna keep announcing you, he's like, we got to give you a cool nickname, like teasing me." And I was like, "Yeah, yeah." Well, at that point, another division needed a guy, and I was the division below, so they bumped me up, and I ended up winning that division. And so when I won that division, he came back over and he goes, "All right, here's your chance. Like, what's your nickname?" And I was like, "I have no idea." And so at the time, my father used to call me Phenom. And so I said that to him, and he goes, "Nah, I don't like it. Give me something else." And I started laughing, and I'm like standing in the middle of the mat. I can't, like, I have no time. And I just looked up, and there are my parents, and I go, "Gorilla." And he goes, walks away. 2 minutes later, he came back and in front of everybody, announced me as Jake the Gorilla Pilla. And I was like, "That's pretty sweet. I'm going to stick with it." You know what I mean? So,
That's awesome.
yeah, it was fun, man. It was cool.
So you run your own gym, right?
Yes, sir.
So how's that experience like?
I love it, man. I've been coaching forever, and so it's something that's kind of a part of me at this point. I've coached everywhere from BTT to Sparrows to Havoc to like anywhere local. I've been around long enough where I've had some part coaching or being a part of the school, and I found over and over again that I kind of felt left out high and dry with a lot of places, and I didn't feel like I was treated the way I should have been. And I have my own difficulties that as a martial artist I didn't enjoy. There is sometimes how do I put this appropriately? Sometimes there's nonsense in gyms,
Yep.
right? There's some sort of a cancer, whether it be people or things or situations that make a gym somewhat toxic. And I found myself in situations like that a few times. And so now to be able to do it on my own terms and have, no nonsense and no problems, there's no little cliques or, this one's talking about this one. This, it's, like I have a huge family, like coming from such a traditional martial art background, like that level of discipline and respect and like the way that we treat each other, like my guys, you have to bow before you get on my mats. Otherwise, you are not allowed on my mats. Like we hold a lot of the same values as the traditional. We're just expanding in our knowledge. And so with that, it's a blessing to have my own school now. It's a blessing to be able to do it on my terms and to treat people the way that I've always wanted to be treated and give it back to them, you know?
So being a fighter, you have to be very selfish. You have to take everything that your coaches give you. And being a coach, you have to be very selfless, giving your fighters everything that you have. How do you find that balance?
It's all based off time, man. As of right now, I'm smart enough to know that I can't do it all, right? And so what I've done is I've brought in high level coaches to help me and to help my room and my guys and my fighters to grow and develop. And with them coming in, I trust them the same way they trust me, and so that's definitely a big help. And then the other thing too, like going to the time thing is in the last, let's say, 6 months, three people have fought out of my school: me, Melissa, and Amanda. And so each fight came, within a month or a month and a half of each other, and they were quick and back to back. But before my last fight, the focus was turned on to me because I was the next one with the opportunity to fight and compete. And so that's kind of where the time needed to be spent. Whereas after this fight, depending on who, which one of my students has the next fight or the next opportunity, the time is going to be focused there. I mean, I can tell you that the week after I fight, we're going into comp training because my guys want to compete the 25th in a grappling tournament. So, like time will be changed and adapted for whoever's trying to compete, and we try to give everybody the fair amount of time and tools needed to be successful.
So what would you say the vibe of your gym is? Is like on a scale of like military regiment to like family knit?
Family knit, 100%. There's so much love and respect in my room that, everybody, uh, it's military in the sense that everybody, falls in line and does what they're supposed to do. But it's family in the sense that there's no drama, there's no animosity, there's no egos in my room, there's no bullies, nobody's getting hurt. Like you really have the sweetest people trying to make each other better, and it's cool to see. You know what I mean? Like I tell them all the time, it's a blessing just to be a part of.
So you mentioned that you keep the values of a traditional martial arts school while going into the modern martial arts. A lot of traditional martial artists, as I said before, they don't like to expand onto their reach. They only want to do their art. Their art's the best. Nothing else matters. Why do you think it's important to expand into different martial arts?
Because that's
Hold on.
the only way to be well rounded, man. I think the better you get at something, or the older you get, or the smarter you become, the more you realize that you don't know everything. It doesn't matter who you are, white belt to black belt, you can teach me something, or I can learn something in the opportunity of working with you. And if you don't keep that sort of a martial arts mentality where like traditional martial arts, you're always supposed to grow, you're always supposed to get better, you're always supposed to develop and continue to practice and to grow and be better. And so like I think a lot of the traditional guys lose sense of that when they do limit themselves to just what they're doing or just one martial art, or like being a martial artist is showing up just to learn. And so, like, for me, why wouldn't I want to learn more than I know now? Like, it would be silly to want to be complacent and stay where I am. Instead, I only look to go forward.
So talking about your next fight, or Combat FC3. So I was looking at your Tapology page, which, by the way, when's that picture from?
Dude, honestly, I'm pretty sure that picture was taken at Y Crew when I was, I'd say 9 years ago or so. I was probably 19. That
All right,
picture is so old.
you gotta get that one updated.
I know, I know. I gotta just send them an email.
Okay, so I was looking at your Tapology, and you fought basically only for a Combat Zone, and you recently came to Combat FC. So why did you make that change? And is that gonna be exclusive, or are you still gonna bounce around?
It's not exclusive. It is one of those things. I love the guys at Combat Zone. I work with them my entire career so far. I've known Calvin for 10 plus years. He was at the first gym I ever really started training MMA at. And I do love fighting for them. They're an awesome facility. I know they have some big things coming up. I have been a part of the Combat Zone family for a long time, and I really enjoy it. And that won't change. And my guys fight for Combat Zone, but Combat FC is an amazing opportunity. I was always skeptical of working with other promotions and having training partners throughout my career. I've seen other promotions that I didn't feel did a fighter justice, if that makes sense. I've seen some good promotions, some bad promotions, and so I always felt like Combat Zone gave me, a fair shake and good treatment, and I always did everything I needed. And so Combat FC, it was new for me. It was definitely kind of a different experience. I didn't feel nearly as at home or like comfortable as I normally would, but I loved it. Joe, Rick, the guys over there, they're awesome dudes. They take care of us. They treat us like people. They're always looking to make sure we're okay. Do we need anything? How can we help? How can we, publicize? Like they're doing it right. And I enjoy being a part of what they're doing. And so I do look to grow and develop with them. I think being on UFC Fight Pass, I think being under the lights and really doing it on a level that they're doing it, I think is incredible exposure. And it'd be crazy not to take such a good opportunity, especially one where, again, like if they were hard to work with, it'd be different, but they do make it easy as a fighter to want to work with them.
So I've been to both shows, and they have very different vibes. I say Combat Zone's very like, it's Friday night, let's get some alcohol and watch some violence. Combat FC is
Yeah.
like, it's very showy. There's a lot of lights. It's a very big venue. So do you have
Yeah.
a preference between the two, between like the crowd and how big it is and stuff?
Not really. I think it's when you're out there, man, you're out there. Once that cage locks and shuts, there's really no difference. It definitely, there was some things about, Combat FC that I loved that Combat Zone didn't do, and there was little things about Combat Zone that I loved that Combat FC didn't do. And I think it's always going to be like that. And so I don't really get uh superstitious or like caught up in the middle of like which one I enjoy or don't. In my head, man, like I'm gonna enjoy Saturday when all the hard work is over. You know, Friday night I got a job to do, and I'm gonna go in there and do it to the best of my ability, and I just try to keep it that simple.
So how's your camp going for this fight?
Good, man, good. It's been weird. I've had a bunch of like opponent switches. My original opponent pulled out, and it's just been bouncing opponent to opponent to who's gonna say yes or what fight makes sense or who can we get on that. No, I'd say kind of last minute. Um, but I've stayed consistent. I'm feeling pretty dialed in. I mean, my body's feeling really good, which is nice. I jumped onto a meal prep company for this fight, which has been a huge, huge difference and help. And so, like, I feel like that took a lot of what normally is my hard work out of it and allowed me to work hard in a lot of other areas, which I'm excited about. So I'm looking forward to getting in there and kind of showcasing myself, again in front of everybody and kind of trying to prove I'm here for a reason.
So what do you think about your opponent Zachary Bernas?
Well, so it's no longer him. It's now
Oh,
Seth Ballister.
who is it?
Seth Ballister.
But so what do you think of them?
Um, I think he's pretty experienced. I think that he's done some pro boxing fights. I think he's done a bunch of pro MMA fights, and so it's one of those things to me, man. He has a lot of experience. He has a lot of cage time and ring time, and that's important. I think he comes out strong and aggressive, and he seems like he comes to fight. It's one of those things, man. For me, I think I it's one of those things. I've been in the game a long time, even if I don't have nearly as many fights as I'd like to show it. And so I do think that experience-wise, I think that we're just going to kind of see that night who keeps the composure and who really kind of picks their shots and does it the right way. Otherwise, man, I say it all the time. I don't know him from a hole in the wall, so I can't say anything good or bad. He's probably a great dude. I did see him fight recently for Cage Titans, and I mean when he walked up to weigh-ins, man, he had his son with him. It was awesome. It was cool to see. So he looked like a cool dude from the sidelines, but we're gonna go in there. We both got a job to do. It's nothing personal.
So win, lose, or draw. What should people think when they hear the name Jake Pilla after this fight?
Yeah, they're gonna be hearing it a lot for the next couple years.
So what are your thoughts on MMA judging? It's been a big controversy in our sport recently.
So that's one of those things, man. It's hard. I think that if you do have judges that have never fought and competed, I do think I don't want to say biased, but I think that makes it very difficult. Um, but I think that no matter who you get or what you try to get for because MMA is not an exact science, there's always going to be some sort of, somebody's not going to like the decision or somebody's not going to agree with it or feel like it went the right way or no matter what you do, somebody's always going to have an argument to it. And so, like, it's one of those things I do think that the judges there needs to be a little bit more of a clear understanding of what their expectations are and how they're judging things. I think that if they went a little bit more in depth to that, I think it would kind of help. But otherwise, it's one of those things. I think those guys are doing the best that they can. And it's also like it should be on the UFC and the athletic commissions to get better guys in here. If these guys aren't doing their job well, it's one of those things like then we got to get them trained and we got to get them knowledgeable and we got to fix the problem rather than just blaming them for not having the knowledge, you know?
So, what are some of your short term and long term goals? Short term, I say under a year and a half. Long term, over a year and a half.
Short term, I definitely I'm looking to fight probably 4 or 5 times this year. So I'm trying to stay super active. If I could walk out of this year, at 5-0, 6-0, and really start making a statement, I think it will go a long way. I think it's going to open a lot of opportunities. I think it's going to, kind of open some big doors. Also on like a personal level, my gym has been growing exponentially over the last, 2 years. And so with that, we are looking to grow and expand and jump to a new location, which is pretty big. So that should be short term, which I'm pretty excited about. Um, Long term, my man, is pretty consistent with where I'm at and what I'm doing. Long term is to get this gym to grow to a place where I have a beautiful business underneath me and I'm loving what I do every day. And long term with fighting is to get to a level where I am one of the top guys in the world. You know, I want to make a stand. I want to be remembered. I want to have, some big fights under some big lights and, see how far I can take this. Yeah, I think it would be a complete waste of who I am to have the potential and not try to take it as far as I can.
So, I don't know if you saw it yesterday, but Combat Zone's matchmaker announced that they would have Dana White's looking for a fight for March 15th. Is that something you'd be interested in?
Yes, it is. It's definitely an interest on my mind. For me, man, and I try to just keep it this way all the time. Until next week, doesn't mean anything. I got to get through next week. I got a game opponent. I got to stick to the process. And once this fight is over, I I'll probably be grabbing lunch with Cal. Talking some trash to him, see if see what happens. But it's one of those things. Like I said, I love Combat Zone and those guys. I love Calvin. But as of right now, my focus has got to be on next week in Combat FC. And so it is a big opportunity, and it is something that I'm very interested in, and that I do think is worth its weight in gold. But it has to make sense. And so if I can get it to make sense, we'll proceed forward. If not, then my opportunity will come when it comes, and I'm just going to keep kind of moving forward with it.
So, what do you outside of martial arts? Do you have any hobbies or a day job or anything?
So I do have a day job, kind of, sometimes. I own a small demolition company, so I run that. So I kind of don't have to work every day. I take small jobs and kind of some little stuff. I got a couple guys working underneath me, and then I manage a solar company. And so a solar company is most of the time remote, and it's like part time. And so with that, it's pretty flexible. So I spend most of my time training at the gym at this point, man.
So, you're on
And
an
then
absolute like stacked card. What's the fight on the card that you're most excited for besides your own?
Um, I'm quite curious as to the main event. We got some 35ers scrapping for a belt that night. That's definitely where my interest is gonna go. I got to see who are the guys that are around me that are the best because at some point, I'd like to hope that I'm gonna bump into them, and so I'm gonna be really keeping an eye on them and some of the new guys coming in. And I'm excited. I will say, um, yeah, yeah, I would say that 35 belt fight is my favorite of the night. I'm gonna be sitting right back in the stands to watch that. So
Awesome. So, we're going to go over some of your favorites. If you want, just give the favorite, move on. You can do that. If you want to give a story, you can do that as well.
okay.
Your favorite big league
So
fighter,
ooh, current or of all time?
all time.
Anderson Silva.
Solid.
Yeah, easy.
Your favorite regional fighter besides yourself.
Favorite regional fighter. This is a hard one. Um,
Besides
so
your fighters as well.
yeah, so well, that's one of those things. I mean, if we're counting the guys that I've grown up with, that I've known forever, John Howard's been my coach forever. Fighter, obviously, is going to be one of my top favorites. Calvin, I knew Cal, long before UFC, and Cal has always treated me in an amazing way. And so like Cal's always going to be one of my favorite fighters. But if you're just looking on like a local, the regional scene locally, um, I got to give it to my boy Brennan Marat, man. I love watching him scrap. He's one of those kids who he's just coming in to punch your face as many times as he can. And I've been around him a long time. I love his energy. I love kind of what he brings. And so anytime I know he's coming back this year, I'm super excited. So like, I would say he's probably my favorite to watch locally.
Your favorite submission to hit.
Ooh, guillotine.
Nice. Your favorite one of your fights.
Um, I would say the my cartwheel kick with Matt Brady was pretty sweet. Definitely made for some good highlights and a good story to tell, you know.
Your favorite fight to watch that's not your own.
Like favorite fight of all time.
Yeah,
Um, Robbie Lawler versus Rory McDonald.
awesome.
Hands down, that war was incredible.
I interviewed Jonathan Piersman, who's on the same car as you. He said the same thing.
Yeah, that fight was crazy, man. That was insane. Who was the one the other day too? There was a beautiful fight with Wonder Boy, Wonder
Kevin
Boy
Holland.
Holland. Yeah, that was incredible too.
Your favorite food to eat after a fight.
Tacos.
Ooh, nice.
Yeah, oh, I love tacos, dude.
And one last question. If you could talk to yourself right before you went pro in 2019, what would your message be to yourself?
You belong here. Yeah, I think that would be the simplest thing. I think, like going pro, I had a lot of like mix up and match problems and people dropping out. It just seemed like it was never supposed to happen. And so I think there was a small amount of time where I was like, oh, it's not working. It's not going to work. And so I definitely think if I could have talked to myself back then, I would have looked at myself and told, hey, listen, buddy, you belong here. Trust the process. You're going to be fine. Um, and so it's something I've definitely learned over the last couple of years.
Awesome. Anything else you'd like to add? Any sponsors, teammate shoutouts, anything like that?
I'm gonna just keep it simple to my family, and in my gym, to all my training partners, my students. Um, I love you guys and I appreciate you all. And next week we're gonna go get the job done.
All right, awesome. Thank you for coming on.
Anytime, my man. Thank you for having me.